Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. We're looking at Egypt, the daggers drawn. The question we're going to put to our panel is how do you break the ice, reach across the aisle, and try to kickstart a political dialogue where there seems to be none at this point. We're with Maïssa Abdel Latif, president of the Women for Human Rights Organization. We're also in the company of Mohamed Elalfy, political analyst, Gil Mahili, Israeli-born journalist, editor-in-chief of Causeur, which you can also find at causeur.fr, right?
Yes.
And as well, Asyam El Defraoui, a political scientist who was putting that point to us before the break. Let me turn to the gentleman here sitting next to you, Mohamed Elalfy. How do you, because we know right now there's a crackdown, at some point there's going to have to be dialogue. How do you start it? Who starts the dialogue? What do you do?
Okay, I think no one can refuse a dialogue, the reasonable dialogue. But how you can start a dialogue with the people insisted to fight and carry guns and to cooperate with foreign intelligence agencies and open channels to work against this country, and also was feeding by money from Qatar and Turkey to work against Egypt. How you will start with those people? If we will talk about what's so-called political Islam, this expression was made inside the CIA and export to the Middle East to say that is we have political Islam. What is this political Islam do? In Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen. Destroy the countries. They destroy the countries. And now we would like to again to repeat this expression, political Islam. There is no political Islam. Those people is not representing Muslims. They are criminals.
You sound like Bashar al-Assad, and you see what happened to Syria. Would you like to have the same thing?
Put your gun down, and then you start the dialogue. I think that will be reasonable to start the dialogue with the people who would like to live in peace. But how now they transfer?
A lot of people who don't have guns.
They transfer the whole Egyptian society to enemy, to them. Of course, there is no. We will not allow a gang like Muslim Brotherhood members to lead the country again. That will never happen again. And if they will insist to fight against the people of Egypt, against the Egyptian army, we will not allow. And now, Madam Maïssa said, just 1 second. Madam Maïssa said the military spokesman give an
a false video.
Yes, and I think he's not a lazy person to do it. No. Actually, I understand your background. You are supporting criminals. You are supporting criminals of Brotherhood.
Group of gangsters. They just break into houses and kill people with evidence. Whatever is Mr. Elalfy is saying is unproven. There are no evidence whatsoever of what he's saying. That's why we were asking the international community. We want an independent investigation committee to come visit Egypt and put all the facts together.
Okay,
we don't want those speeches, very big speeches, very high, loud voice speeches with no evidence whatsoever.
What's interesting in what both of you are saying is, Mohamed, you're talking about plots from the outside of foreign intelligence services, and you're saying you need outside help. But how can Egyptians, on their own?
I'm not asking for. I need.
You're asking for an outside inquiry
because I cannot count on the military because they are not.
But at what point can Egyptians solve their own problems and sit down together? Is my question.
If you see the president of the country sitting with judges, how can the judges be independent when the president of the country is talking to the judges and he's asking them to put the law aside? Just take decisions, that just give verdicts.
It would be really nice if we could get out of this polarizing discussion and find something positive.
Okay.
Let me please finish this one. I profoundly believe that we should make a difference between this political Islam, between jihadism, and there are many valuable people.
I have a point here that I want to address. I didn't have the chance to address it.
Sorry about this, which could talk to each other. But if I hear this, I mean, we have the amazing spectacle here of how polarized polarized Egypt is. You're both representing, instead of trying to find reconcilable positions.
No, I'm
both trying
not,
to
Actually, I'm
make
very sorry. Yeah,
close to propaganda points.
No, not at all. Because I really respect your opinion. I really respect what you have said earlier. Really, you had put your finger on many true points with regard to Sinai. But actually, I'm not talking polarization here. I'm talking evidence and I'm talking facts. Everybody can see it in Egypt. I cannot act in Egypt as a human rights organization. I'm banned from coming back to Egypt as a human rights activist. Human rights is completely banned in Egypt right now. What we want is to open up to everything. Human rights activists can come in, journalists can go in. Journalists without borders cannot act in Egypt these days. Nobody can get a good piece of information. The people who were covering the funerals of the people, the 13 people who were killed in their apartment yesterday, the journalists who were covering it got detained. So journalists get detained. We don't have any freedom of expression. We don't have freedom of bringing the truth or good information or good source of information. That's what I was saying in Sinai. We don't have any source of information.
Right.
We don't know what's going on and who are we fighting against. Who are those ghosts? They are ghosts for us. We don't know who are they. They just give terms, terrorists, jihadists, political Islam. I'm not talking about political Islam here. I'm talking about politics and democracy. We were in a good stage of democracy. We had the chance to revert everything the way we wanted, the way the people wanted, not what the army wanted,
right,
or not what part of the people wanted.
As is clear, a lot of mistrust on both sides. We're getting a lot of reactions. And again, this points to that spiral of polarization that we've been talking about. Can someone please explain, this is on Twitter, why Egypt attacked the Muslim Brotherhood in response to an attack by ISIS affiliates? That's, I guess, an allusion, Gil Mehaly, to the killing of 9 Muslim Brotherhood people in Cairo on Wednesday as those attacks were still going on. And again, there's this spiral of polarization in Egypt, as we've witnessed here. And
yes, and I think that at least what I fear is an Algerian scenario, like in the 90s and 2000, when a very strong legitimacy crisis led to almost a decade of extreme violence.
They called it the blood years.
Yes, and we thought that because they had rosy cheeks for a few years, they got over it, but now we see how profound the wounds are and how long it takes to heal them. But what I want to say, to be positive, contrary to many other Arab countries who are now in trouble, Egypt is not an artificial state that was carved out by the colonialists. It's a real nation with a long tradition. It's a state with long institutional tradition, with different kinds of elites. They have all the resources to work out something because they have a very solid basis. If we compare Egypt to Syria or to Libya, it's almost very little comparison. It's another world from the point of view of political culture, of statehood, and of institutions. So the good thing is that they have very, very good foundations. And I think that also that there are very strong interests that will push Egypt in the direction of stability. They cannot lay back on the rent of petrol or gas. They need stability in order to make money in the Suez Canal. They need stability in order to make money in tourism. They need stability in order to attract outside investments. So they have good foundations, and on the outside there is the whole range of interest that will push them, I think, in the positive direction.
I would like to continue here. Everybody's saying Egypt is a very old nation state. In some ways it is. Sometimes it's overestimated. There's a strong sense of nationalism among all fractions, which are quite positive elements. But sometimes we also overestimate the capacities of the Egyptian state. The Egyptian state appears strong, but it isn't that strong. Imagine we have this prolonged unrest, to put it nicely, and we'll get on top of it a kind of hunger revolution or a bread revolution. Economically, it's not going up. So you might see unrest all over the country. And the state's capacity in terms of security forces, the state is not present wherever. So we might have a really prolonged low-intensity conflict which grows into a high-intensity conflict. And what then? Or what if the army...
So the specter of an Algerian scenario
the Algerian
is
scenario
real.
has been a lot discussed. It's called the eradication scenario. It didn't really work in Algeria. But there are other elements. The root causes of the Egyptian revolution or the fall of Mubarak haven't been tackled. So a lot of dissatisfied Egyptians economically would really start unrest for their profound needs in life. And then the state, or nor the army, has a capacity to dwell mass unrest. The army has not even really the total capacity today to really fight against jihadis in Sinai. What happens if you have mass unrest in some upper Egyptian cities and the army is forced to shoot on some people? Then even the army might collapse. The paradox is the army is in some ways a guarantee of the Egyptian state. Now it's taking a lot of sides, but if the army collapses, Egyptian statehood might collapse with it.
All right, reactions coming in. One from Ali on Twitter. IS feeds off of the latent anti-government sentiment in Sinai. Recent evictions of some tribal settlements only added to the resentment. A different reading across the border. The Israeli Prime Minister offering condolences and casting a wide net, a very wide net, for culprits.
We see ISIS at the gates, across the border in the Golan, across the border in Egypt. We send our condolences to the government and people of Egypt for the fallen Egyptians slayed by ISIS terror. We must stand up to all the forces of militant Islam, those led by Iran, those led by ISIS. We should not strengthen one or the other.
All right, so he mentions Iran in the same sentence as ISIS. I can see Asyam shaking his head. By the way, Israel's government's big into cartoon these days to get their point across on social media and video streaming sites. Take a look.
State sweeps through the Middle East, killing anyone who isn't exactly like them. Imagine how dangerous Islamic State would be if it had armored divisions, fighter jets, and ballistic missiles. Imagine Islamic State building atomic bombs. Well, maybe it's not that hard to imagine. The Islamic State of Iran, like ISIS, just much bigger.
What's your reaction to that, Gil Maley?
Benjamin Netanyahu has its own agenda, but if we want,
do Israelis believe that, or is it just they take it sort of a tongue-in-cheek kind of attitude to this thing?
I guess some do, some don't. I don't think that they are very much familiar with the different stages, the different movements, and they tend to see a threat comes from everywhere. Sometimes they're right, sometimes less. But there is something profoundly true about the fact that what happened in Iran in '79 had something to do with a response from the Sunnite world. It's as if politically and religiously the Iranians invented an atomic bomb in '79. And in the Sunnite world, they tried to develop their own. And what we see today, whether it's Al-Qaeda or whether it's the Islamic State, is the kind of radicalizations that mirrored and followed what happened in Iran between '79 and in the 1980s. They developed their own kind of radical.
So it's not a question of the words being interchangeable, but rather a competition.
No, not at all. And I don't think that's what Netanyahu wanted to say.
Asyam El-Difra, how do you interpret the words of the Israeli Prime Minister?
I mean, Iran compared to ISIS is like an example of moderate statehood and liberal democracy. Let's put it that way. The foundation of the Islamic Republic of Iran had some consequences on the development on Sunni extremism and some notions, but it's not the root cause. I mean, these people have been existing before. I mean, Netanyahu's speech is not helpful for Egypt at all. it's really his own agenda. Mixing Iran and ISIS again back together, and it's not helpful. Egyptians will dislike if they hear this kind of stuff. I mean, Egyptians are not profoundly not very great friend of Israel in the political sense of Netanyahu, and this will feed the fire even more. I mean, his expression of solidarity with Egypt. Middle-class Egyptians will think, well, you see, our government is even supported by Netanyahu. Great alliance. So it's not helpful to interfere with this kind of statements into Egyptian politics. Some condolence would be appropriate, but not commenting to this degree.
Mohamed Elalfy, do you agree?
Yes, regarding Netanyahu's speech, he mean directly the Iranian nuclear program. He would like to stop it by any way. So he must create ISIS with Egypt, with Iran to give a speech. But the main target for him is the Iranian nuclear program. And let's back to some points. Regarding the 9 people was killed in October 6th city, they are the heads of Muslim Brotherhood leading the military operations against the Egyptians.
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood putting out a statement where they said that in fact these people were murdered in cold blood. And
No. Of course, they will Muslim Brotherhood will give a speech. They are angels. They are angels. We have a white hands. We have never carried guns. Of course. They will say we are the sons of the God. No, but that is not true. They are leading the operations against the civilians, leading operation against the Egyptian police, leading operation and finance against the Egyptian army. And when they are trying to arrest them, they start firing the forces. What is the forces will do? Will hug them? To say, come in, baby. What they will say?
It's a case of he said, she said. Let me just ask.
I would like to do for just 1 minute a very calm analysis.
Everything.
Let's get some calm back in here, maybe.
I haven't been given the chance to address my points.
Yeah, but I mean, I would like to really.
Can I complete
I would like to draw something out. Let's really look at the Egyptian political spectrum and Egyptian political life very calmly. What do we have in Egypt? So we have like 20 or 30% of supporters of some political Islam. We have in the middle of society, or let's call it the middle.
How did you count them as 20-30%? How did you decide this number?
We have election with strong streams. Then we are divided.
The elections had proven something different. The actual elections had proven something different.
Yes, they have proven something different, but it changed. So let's say roughly Egyptian society is divided into political Islam, supporters for various reasons of the current government, even military interests or economic interests, or some people who really believe in this kind of hardcore Egyptian nationalism. Then we have 20% of Egyptian society who doesn't want to have neither political Islam nor the military. And then we have a lot of local issues, for which Sinai is the best issue. So how do you get these people together? And obviously, people from the Muslim Brotherhood who feel very unsatisfied might join jihadi tendencies, but I think it's a minority. But I mean, if he really identifies a political spectrum, there will be still people who can talk to each other. And I really want to remind you again, how can we do that?
All right, that is a key question. Maisa Abdel Latif, in the statement put out in English by the Muslim Brotherhood, there was a call for rebellion. But what did the Muslim Brotherhood mean by that?
Rebellion, yeah. Like to go out in the streets.
Armed rebellion? Or?
Did they say armed rebellion?
No, they did not.
Have they been using any arms so far? The gentleman says they have decided to use arms. This means that ever since the coup, there was no use of arms. I'm not here in a position to defend the Muslim Brotherhood or to defend the whole situation in Egypt, but I'm just evaluating what's going on. What's going on in Sinai is completely unjust. There is a complete disappearance of justice in Sinai, and there is a complete disappearance of justice in Egypt in general. Okay, so we have a one-man show. We have one person who's regulating the whole country. One man who is standing behind the judges, telling the judges what to say and what to do. He's ordering the judges as if they are soldiers to put the law aside. Now, today, we have a verdict of execution. Tomorrow, we execute. This is not a country. This is not a nation. This is not a state. These are a group of gangsters who are just trying to regulate or to rule the country with the rule of weapons.
And to the question put by Asiem, how do you get people to sit around the table? How do you do it?
By stopping aggression. By stopping the aggression of the military and of the police, of the security forces. The narration of Mr. Elalfy is completely untrue. There is no evidence whatsoever. The narration of the police, it was the only narration of the police. There are no journalists. The journalists who
negotiation of police and the army. There is no negotiation from the criminals of brotherhood.
For me, this is not natural enough.
They are criminals.
They
have their own agenda, foreign agenda inside Egypt.
This is your opinion,
when
Mr.
you talk
Elalfy.
About the president,
Mr. Elalfy,
there is
no
intervention.
I respect it very much.
I think you both give a great impression of the Egyptian capacity of dialogue.
There is no intervention in the judicial system.
I'm telling
there
him,
is no intervention.
I respect his opinion, but
I respect you too. But we have to amend some
we cannot
words.
have a car bombing and then the president of the whole state comes out a few minutes after and he says those who have done it. I don't want to refer to Muslim Brotherhood because Muslim Brotherhood are people of Egypt. I want to refer to the whole people of Egypt. Okay, the need for the whole people of Egypt. So if he comes out and addresses some kind or some part of the Egyptian people, he gives the evidence. He says this committee had investigated and found out so and so and so. Why did they ban journalist work? Why did they ban publishing on newspapers about this case? Because there are truths that they don't want to reveal. It's as simple as that. The people of Egypt are completely misinformed. We don't know what's going on. We need the truth. We need to understand what's going on. The same case in Sinai. We want to know what's going on. And it's very ironic that since 3 years, the same bombings in Sinai has been taking place and no one was held accountable, not from the military and not from the police. Not a ranked officer has been banned from his job, had been forced to resign, had been punished for all the shortcomings that are taking place.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that 3 years ago, after the big Ramadan attack, the chief of staff was sacked, and Sisi was appointed by Morsi because of what happened.
And who said we didn't account Morsi for that as a mistake? He made a mistake about that.
I'm just saying that the military establishment sacked officers every time that there were failures in the Sinai campaign. I'm just making a technical remark.
All right. So the issue obviously is not going to be resolved today, and it seems as though the polarization continues. I want to thank Maisa Abdel Latif, Gil Mahali.
Welcome.
I also want to thank Asiem El-Difraoui and Mohamed Elalfy. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. But stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, Francois. Just taking a look at the topic you were touching on at the end of the debate, the Egyptian media, and quite a few pieces in the European press in the last couple of days about the I suppose, crackdown, you could say, on press freedom, how Egyptian media has become a mouthpiece for the military state. This is a piece by Noor Youssef in The Guardian. Just to kind of quickly sum up what he says, he refers to a report released 1 week ago by the Committee to Protect Journalists, which says that more Egyptian journalists are in prison than ever before in terms of records. At least 18 journalists are behind bars at the moment. And there's also the threat of jail, which is being used to censor critical voices. Another point touched on in this piece is, for example, popular TV presenters such as Ahmed Moussa, who are actually quite willing to admit that they are mouthpieces for the government. I would say anything the military tells me to say out of duty and respect for the institution, he told The Guardian. Another journalist, the website editor of at Al Masri Al Yum, His name is Ahmed Ragab. He says reporters know which topics they have to avoid. So there's also a form of self-censorship. And he refers to events in the Sinai. He said, in the Sinai, rather, no one can really question how well trained the soldiers were that we have thrown in there to face the insurgency in the Sinai. He gives that as an example of self-censorship, a topic you know that you better not address publicly. So that's just an example of some of the issues touched on in that piece, Francois. But then there's also the issue of foreign journalists, such as this journalist for El País, a newspaper. His name is Ricard Gonzalez. He essentially fled Egypt 4 or 5 days ago, and he has been speaking to the media ever since in Europe. He has said he wants to speak out very vocally about this. No time to say goodbye. That's the headline on the Deutsche Welle website. He says the Spanish authorities told him that he was at risk of imminent arrest. He doesn't know exactly what the charges would have been, but he was strongly advised by the Spanish authorities to leave Egypt. He suspects it might be in relation to a book he wrote about the Muslim Brotherhood, published in March, which was critical both of the Muslim Brotherhood and of the current regime. Also the fact that his newspaper El País is one of the most critical publications in Europe of the current government. So he says that this could be a test. He's worried this could be a test to see how foreign journalists would react to such treatment. And he also says he's surprised, seeing as President Sisi had said it was a mistake to indict foreign journalists, reference, of course, to the Al Jazeera case, and that the next time they should be deported. So is this perhaps a move in that direction through intimidation of some sorts? It could be the case.
All right, many thanks for that, James Green. I want to thank our panel once again for joining us. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.